Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Slam Talks Sports. It is Friday afternoon. It is 1:20 p.m. Melbourne time. So that must mean it is time for the preview show. Yes, there are 8 big games to preview. One massive game from last night to unpack. And I cannot wait to get stuck into all of them with you right now. It's going to be a slightly shorter show today just because I need to be on a train at 4 p.m. And it's currently 1:20. So that means I've got about half an hour to tape the show, edit the show, get it out on YouTube, and go to the toilet. So it's going to be very, very tight timing for the next 3 hours. So let's get stuck into it straight away. Thursday night football down at the Cattery, down the Geelong Highway, if that's the way you go to football. It was the Geelong Cats taking down the Western Bulldogs. What was the end score in the end? Was it 128 to 114? 14 points. And those damn Cats, they find a way at home. They already lost one this season at the Cattery to the GWS Giants only a couple of weeks ago. But damn it, there was no way they were losing the Bailey Smith Cup, or what I was looking forward to, Mitch Duncan's 300th game. What a great player he's been for the Geelong Cats. A premiership player back in 2011 and one of the best kicks of the football I've seen over my time watching footy. But yes, last night's contest was an enthralling encounter that went down to the wire. Now, the Cats started very strongly in this game. They got out to, a 4-5 goal lead in the second quarter for the Dogs. As they've done all year, they drag you back. They say, wait just a second here. I might be on a leash, but I'm walking you today, okay? They get goals from Vandermeer. They get goals out of stoppage. They get 2 goals out of one of my favourite players in Ed Richards. And you're thinking, you're sitting on the couch, wow, this is a great Thursday night contest. Who's going to be the difference? And of course, it was the Geelong forwards. But it's not Tom Hawkins anymore. No, it's not Patrick Dangerfield. No, it is Shannon Neal. No, not Shannon Knoll saying, what about me? It was Shannon Neal kicking 5 goals and Jeremy Cameron kicking 6 goals for the Geelong Cats last night. They simply just find a way in those tight contests down at the Cattery. Now, Bailey Smith, and what was the Bailey Smith Cup last night, he had 33 disposals. He was pretty good. But for mine, the best player outside the key forwards was Max Holmes. We got maximum Holmes last night. A brilliant goal, similar to Buddy Franklin against Essendon all those years ago, going all the way from the back pocket to the half-forward flank, kicking a brilliant goal that could be goal of the year. It was one of his 33 disposals last night. He has turned into a fantastic player, Max Holmes. Only, 22 years old, All-Australian last season. The Cats won a game that we thought they all would maybe squeak home in, but the odds didn't represent that. I think they were $1.80 and the Dogs maybe $1.98. It was truly a pick'em last night. A great Thursday night footy contest. And on the Dogs side of things, they don't lose too many admirers. I mean, they played pretty well in a game that they were always going to be up against it to win. Liberatore was great. Bont was not dominant in the last quarter, but good over the first 3 quarters. Ed Richards was really good last night. They have a lot of players that contribute week to week, but the Cats' class ultimately was the difference last night, and particularly their forward half. What do they do going forward? The Dogs, is Lobb the answer? Is their number one key back, and O'Donnell? Or do they look to bring Liam Jones back into the fold? He's returning from a calf injury in the VFL this weekend after being dropped about a month ago. I'm not sure what Luke Beveridge is planning. Only just he's going to be throwing darts at his Cane Corns dartboard tomorrow night. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the Thursday night recap. We're doing express pace today because there's a big game at the MCG tonight, and it is Essendon taking on Richmond at Dreamtime at the G, sorry. And this game has been going for 20 years. Yes, Dreamtime at the G started all the way back in 2005, and it's been pretty much even in terms of who won and lost the contest. Essendon started really strong. Then Richmond had a dominant period between 2017 and 2022 when they won every single game under the tutelage of Damien Hardwick and under the magistry and the maestro and the magic of Dustin Martin. Truly was a tremendous and transformative player for the Richmond Football Club. But tonight's contest, the line is Essendon favoured by 22.5 points. There are some major ins and outs. Yes, there's some really big ones for the Tigers especially. Let's get stuck into the teams, as we do love to do here on a Friday afternoon. And the teams are in for Friday night football. Out of Essendon's team, hold on, let me scroll down 1 inch there. In the Essendon's team, we have Angus Clark debuting. We've got Jade Gresham coming back in for the Dreamtime with the G. Great to have an Indigenous player representing Essendon in this game. They do tend to always find one to put into the team, but Jade Gresham has been, hot and cold this season, recovering from an adductor injury. I'd love to see him kick a goal tonight in what is a massive game for all the Indigenous people. And in comes Matthew Guelphy. Out to the Essendon team goes Dylan Shield, Saad Al-Hawley, who has been dropped for reasons unbeknown to all Essendon fans, and out goes Mr. Archer Day Wicks. In for Richmond comes Campbell Gray, in comes Samson Ryan, and in comes Morris Rioli. Great to have Morris out there tonight. And out goes Noah Bolter because it's too late, he needs to be in bed. Out goes Tom Lynch with a delayed concussion, and out goes Toby Nankervis. The captain, I think, has been managed in what is their biggest game of the year. A bit odd for me. Now, as I said, the line is 22.5 points. I think Essendon shouldn't have too much trouble winning this game. When you look at the teams right now, it is a crash. The Richmond crash or Richmond kindergarten side will be going out there tonight on the Hello Turf. I think the Bombers have too much quality, despite the fact I said on this podcast last week they'd go very close to being the Dogs. They only lost by 90 points, so I was only about 80 points wrong in that instance. I think the Bombers tonight will take care of business. On the betting side of things, I'll be looking at Bombers legs, of course, because they are the more experienced team who desperately needs to win this game. I'll be looking at Kako anytime. I'll be looking at Durham 20, Martin 25, Redmond 20. I think Essendon like to cycle the ball. They like to dispose it. They're a high disposal team. As long as the rain stays away, I'll be looking at those names to control the football and ultimately win the contest for the Bombers. Now, I didn't say Zach Merritt. Zach Merritt has gone sub 25 3 weeks in a row. I still love what Zach Merritt can do. He won the Yukon Award, I think was it last year, with a great performance. He's going to be around the mark for sure, but the odds do not reflect the performances of Zach in recent weeks. Would not surprise me if he had 35 touches tonight, but I like the odds of Nick Martin 25 better at the moment, and to win the Yukon Award, he is currently $10, while Zach Merritt is only $5. Half the odds. I don't think that is good betting. Let's move forward to Saturday afternoon, and Saturday afternoon brings us to Marvel Stadium, where we've got the GWS Giants going down to Marvel to take on the Carlton Blues. Now, the line in this one is, I think it's only 4.5 points the Blues' favour. That is correct. Ins and outs. Ins for Carlton is Harry O'Farrell, the son of the man who handed Patrick Cripps his first Brownlow. Yeah, that's right. Harry O'Farrell's dad was Carlton's lawyer when Patrick Cripps somehow got gifted a Brownlow medal, even though he knocked out Callum Archie. Still to understand that one, people. If you can explain that to me, please let me know. In comes Lockie Fogarty. In comes Tom de Koning after his 1 week absence with a bruised larynx. In comes Blake Acres, and in comes Sam Doherty. Oh yes, the Royal Flying Doctor Service is back to take on the Giants this weekend. Out goes Elijah Holmes through personal leave. Out goes Jack Silvani. Out goes Mark Pitternet after his 1 game cameo. Out goes Francis Evans, who Carlton fans will be happy that he's been dropped. Let's be serious. Out goes Jordan Boyd. And that's it. That's it for the Carlton ins and outs. I got excited. Got ahead of myself. In for the Giants comes Leek Alia. He had some great performances last year. He's courted the attention and the fancy of St. Kilda, potentially looking at a multi-million-dollar deal. Hopefully he can get some form for the Giants before then. And in also comes Harry Ralston. Out goes the flying Finn Callahan, who's having a great season. He's out for 4 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury. And out goes Toby McMullen. Big game at Marvel Stadium, and I must say the AFL have cooked on this one. 12:35 start time. You never see that in Victoria, let alone across all the other states in Australia. I think that is a brilliant start time for footy, so you can have a true festival of football on Saturday. And the only way you're going to see it is on Foxtel or KO. What a shame that is. Who do you think is going to win this game, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? I think Carlton going to find a way to scratch it out, but I've got no confidence either way. I just think that the Giants midfield is lacking right now. It is really lacking. You don't have Canelio in there. You don't have now Finn Callahan. And they've been beaten pretty badly in the mids the last few weeks. With George Hewitt and Patrick Cripps, I'm thinking they can boss proceedings. Their only real worry is Tom Green going mental, going bananas in this game. But if they can halve the contest, they can match him in the guts, then I think the Blues will find a way to just eke out a victory. Now, neither side has been really high scoring over the last couple of seasons. They're both very strong defenses. I'd have them both in the top 5 defenses over the last couple of seasons. So it could be, a 78 to 75 contest. I just think the likes of de Koning, Cripps, and Hewitt will be able to have a big impact on this game, and Adam Chera, who played very well last weekend. And Sam Walsh potentially is looking at a Toby Bedford tag, so I'll be staying away from him in betting props, but I do like Carlton to just get the job done. In terms of betting props, Hewitt Cripps, probably my only two suggestions right now. 20, 25 touches, whatever good odds you can find on those two gentlemen. Goals-wise, I'm not too enraptured or enthralled in any players in this game. I mean, Jesse Hogan is a star player, but he's going to cop Jacob Weitering. Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay are both very good forwards, but they're going to cop Buckley and Taylor. There's no one that screams to me saying, you need to pick him. They're going to kick a bunch of goals on this day. I just think disposals is the way to go at a nice dry deck under the lid at Marvel Stadium. Blues, I think, will just find a way. 4.5 point line. Not interested in betting into that. We move forward to the MCG, and it is a great contest between two teams that still think they can win the flag, but need to find a little bit of form. It is Hawthorn taking on the Brisbane Lions, 4:15 our time down here in Melbourne. The teams, well, they've landed. They landed on Thursday afternoon. It's time for me to tell you who is in and out for this contest. In comes Jarman Impey. In comes Jackie Gunston. In comes Lloyd Meek. And in comes Connor Nash for the Hawks. Out goes Ned Reeves. Out goes Bally McDonald. Out goes Finn McGuinness. And out goes Kalsha Dia. On the Brisbane side of things, in comes Devon Robertson, in comes Jared Berry, out goes Caden Coleman, who suffered some knee soreness after his return from an ACL. He was very good last week in a loss to Melbourne, but unfortunately he has suffered a lot of soreness in his recovery from that ACL injury, and out goes Connor McKenna. Two half-backs go out for Brisbane. Interesting. The line is 10.5 points in Hawthorn's favour. They've got a great record against the Brisbane Lions at the MCG. In fact, I think they beat the Brisbane Lions at Marvel Stadium last year. That helped kickstart Hawthorn's ascent up the ladder, but also gave a bit of a reality check to Brisbane that, in fact, if they want to win the flag, they better get their butts moving. And that's exactly what they did in the final 10 weeks of the season. Who do I like? It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. Talent-wise, Brisbane are better. They've got the better players on the park right now, just because we know the Hawks are missing Will Day. They don't have Luke Bruce out there. I know he's 500 years old, but I still love what Luke Bruce can bring to the team. That's just because it's at the G, I'm going to marginally favour with Hawthorn. I don't like the line in this one for either team. I think the Lions are going to go mightily close. I like their midfielders for disposals. I'm talking Dunkley, I'm talking McCluggage, I'm talking Ashcroft. Maybe Lockie Neal as well. I think all those players will play well on the G. They've got a decent record at the G, actually, the last couple of years, the Brisbane Lions. But I still think Hawthorn will just find a way to eke this one out through the likes of their smalls, whether it's Dylan Moore, whether it's Nick the Wizard Watson, or whether it is one of my favourite players in the rat-tailed Padawan himself, Mr. Connor McDonald. I think they'll find a way to generate some goals from their smalls and just win this contest. Let's move forward to Saturday night football. And there is two Saturday night games this weekend. That's right, two. There's one in Victoria and there's one in Perth. Okay, there's one in Western Australia at Optus Stadium. It's what we want, people. We want an 8-10 game in Perth. If it's West Coast, so be it. But this week is Freo, and Freo are actually watchable, which is very, very nice. Firstly, we start at Marvel Stadium, and it is Collingwood taking on North Melbourne. Now, if you remember last year, this game was an instant classic. North Melbourne led by, 50 points before Collingwood started turning the tables like they only know how. Bobby Hill, I think, kicked 4 or 5 goals, including Mark of the Year. Some absolute screamers in this game, and one howler of an umpiring decision, if you can recall that. Was it Bailey Scott, which wasn't awarded a 50-metre penalty after a Collingwood player was about 500 hectares in front of the man on the marker where he should have been standing? So yeah, North have a bit to fight for on Saturday night. They think they might owe the Pies one after last year. The line, though, is 33.5 points in Collingwood's favour, despite the fact there is no Sidebottom and Darcy Moore. Well, hell, before I tell you the teams, let's get stuck into them right now. The ins and the outs. North Melbourne, they bring in Paul Curtis after missing 3 games for his tackle, which was perfect. But in 2025, cost you 3 games. Still don't understand that one. In comes Curtis and in comes Zach Fisher. Out goes Bailey Scott and out goes Zane Dersman. There'll be no retribution for Bailey Scott this season against the Magpies. In for the Magpies, though, comes William Hayes, and out goes Steele Sidebottom, who has been rested. Now, Sidebottom has been fantastic this season, but Collingwood have opted to rest him in this game against one of the minnows. What's going on there? Against one of the minnows, apparently in this competition in North Melbourne. Who do I like? I think North will cover at 33.5 points. I think North are improving. They won last week. They should have been Brisbane a couple of weeks ago. Should have been Essendon a couple of weeks ago. Has the page turned here for North Melbourne? Can we trust North Melbourne once again? They should have been Essendon. They should have been Brisbane. They did beat North Melbourne. Can we trust North to cover the line of 33.5 points? I think we can. I think they're going to go damn close in this game, but I still like Collingwood to win. You know why? Because they're called bloody Collingwood. They just find a way. Whether it's on a plane, whether it's on a boat, whether it's on a small car ride to Marvel Stadium where they rarely play, they just get the chockies. I can see Bobby Hill, Jamie Elliott just having enough goals, generating enough scores with the likes of the Dacos brothers to just lift the Pies in a close encounter. But have your say. What do you think? Is it time for North to take a scalp in 2025? I don't think it's going to be this week. I just know how good the Pies are in big games, and this is North's biggest game for a long time. If they can take down the premier team in the competition over the last 2 seasons, then it will be kangaroo time. But I don't think it's this week. I think it's come just too soon. No real bet to me in this one. I think Nick Dacos got off the chain last year in the second half of the game, but he was well held for the first, 2.5 quarters by Will Phillips. And was Liam Shields out there? I think he's about 500 years old. Not sure that's going to happen this weekend. I just think the Pies will find a way to just get it done. And let's go to the other side of the country. It is Fremantle taking on poor Adelaide over at Optus Stadium. 8:10 start time here in Melbourne. The line is 18.5 points. No ins for Freo. They had a dominant victory last week against the GWS Giants. They think, we're doing pretty well. We're going to leave Josh Draper, James Aish, and Liam Reedy on the emergencies because we're going so well. Bolton's dominating the midfield. Brayshaw and Sarong are having good games. Luke Jackson looking at the best ruck in the competition. Why make any changes? And you know what? I kind of agree. Port Adelaide said, stuff that. We're going to change half the side. Out goes Radigalia. Out goes Lockie Jones. Out goes Josh Sin. And out goes Jason Horne-Francis with a hamstring injury. In comes Brandon Zerk-Thatcher for his first game of the season. In comes the eternal wonder, the ageless veteran and star of Port Adelaide, Mr. Travis Boak. And in comes my old friend Rory Atkins, who's given some nice assists back in the day in under-12s. And in comes Hugh Jackson. No, not the former coach of the Cleveland Browns. This is a different Hugh Jackson. What do I make of this game? Well, I think Port are really struggling at the moment. I think they're really struggling. They haven't really had any good wins in the last sort of 5-6 weeks. I still think their best win is against Hawthorn all the way back in Gather Round. That was nearly, 2 months ago? That was like round 6, maybe 6-7 weeks ago. I just don't think Port are a good football team. And if you consider the manner of their losses, going to Mars and getting pumped, I mean, they lost at home to St. Kilda not too long ago. They lost a very tight showdown. And even last week, last week was hard for a Port fan. You got demolished in your own stadium by Geelong. And Geelong lost Patrick Dangerfield halfway through the game. They lost Jack Bowes halfway through the game. I mean, where do you see yourself, Port fans? Where honestly do you see yourself going forward? Because you don't have many great young players outside Horne-Francis, who you traded for. I mean, you got decent capital to get him. But if the worst happened and Zach Butters left and you got a bunch of draft picks, would that be the worst thing ever for you? I mean, Zach Butters is a superstar, but if you got a lot of capital in that trade, maybe even a young player, you can click restart on this franchise, or this club, sorry, we're not franchising in Australia. You can click restart on this club with Connor Rosie and Horne-Francis and a couple other young talent and say, you know what, we're probably 3-4 years away from contending again. We've got a new coach. We're going to have a new regime. Ken's era is over. Playing older players, trading for older players, and refusing to go to the draft. Well, that era potentially could be over as well with the Zach Butters era. And you start again with potentially one of the best players in the competition in 2 years' time in Jason Horne-Francis. Could that be the strategy going forward? I'm not sure. For this game, though, I do like Fremantle. I think Fremantle will cover the line. I think they've got too much quality. And in that stadium, they've been competitive or won pretty much every single week. I know they lost to Sydney early in the year by a couple of points. Lost to Collingwood early in the year, well, not that long ago, actually, by a couple of goals. But against teams that we don't consider in the top 8 or the top 10, they should get the business done. I think Freo will win this game. I like the likes of Bolton, Brayshaw and Sarong to get their disposals just because it's rare that Port have employed a tag. We've seen Willem Drew do a run-with role with certain players, but not with the likes of Shea Bolton. I mean, I just think the classy players in this game will shine. Move forward to Sunday football. Now, Sunday football, obviously, we don't have the full teams and the full ins and outs, but I'll run you through what's come across my desk so far. As I scroll down, you will see that Adelaide have added Luke Pedlar, Sid Draper, and Billy Dowling to their squad. On the West Coast side of things, in comes Noah Long, Archer Reid, Bo Allen, Clay Hall, and Tyrell Dewar to their squad. Out goes Jamie Cripps, who suffered an injury on the weekend. He'll be out for at least 4 weeks. And out goes Matthew Owies, who also suffered an injury and will be out for the next 4 weeks. The line is 50.5 points Adelaide's favour. Will they cover that? I'm not so sure. You don't see 50-point blowouts every single week. I know West Coast suck. They are truly terrible, and they are going to play Adelaide. In Adelaide, the wheel will turn for West Coast and they'll win a couple of games. I know they won last week against St. Kilda. Not much to brag about, beating St. Kilda in Perth. Will they go to Adelaide and get close? They most certainly will not. Will be within 50. I am not sure. But I think the likes of Rankin and Ben Keys will kick goals in this game. They'll be amongst it. They'll be looking to get neck deep, if not waist deep, in the carcass that is West Coast right now. I think it will be a filleting. Will it be 50? Not sure. Will Adelaide players get a fill up? The likes of Dawson, likes of Keys, likes of Laird. Will they fill their boots? I think so. Let's move forward to a good game of the MCG. It is 3:20 our time here in Melbourne. It is the Melbourne Football Club, yes, those damn Demons, who seem to be finding form right now against Sydney. Now, in for Melbourne to their squad is Jake Lever, Bailey Laurie, and Jai Kelly. We expect to see Jake Lever slot straight into the team, although he's named on an extended bench right now, so we're not sure if he is fully fit after playing VFL last weekend. And in for Sydney comes Callum Mills, Hayden McLean, Taylor Adams, Ben Patton, Caleb Mitchell, and Ned Bowman. Jesus. Then Cox, make up your mind. That's a big squad. Out goes Justin McInerney, out goes Joel Amati, and out goes Aaron Francis. Good to see their captain, Callum Mills, return to the team. He was on managed minutes last week in the VFL, but he still was dominant. I think he had 18 touches and a goal in just over 60% time on ground. Will we see Taylor Adams also return to the team? He's on the extended bench. I'm unsure for this one. I think the line is very small. The line is only 1.5 points. Jesus. I think Sydney are favoured by 1.5 points as well at the MCG. I think I'll be tipping Melbourne. I think Melbourne have slightly turned the corner, and with their big win against Brisbane last weekend, I've got some renewed confidence in this team and what they can do. And it's not just Gawn and Petrarca and Oliver, who all played well last weekend. It's the likes of Jake Bowie, who's just having a fantastic year. It's the likes of Jake Malcolm, who's come in and helped straighten up this forward line. Bailey Fritsch was the sub last weekend. Their forward line, as you can clearly see, is still a work in progress, but they're finding a way to generate a score. Sydney have not been a high-scoring team this year. Their midfield's been lacking without Goulden, without Mills, who now returns. I think Gawn, Grundy, two of the best ruckmen I've seen during my time watching football. That'll be great to watch, but I do think Melbourne will just eke this one out and win by a couple of points. Finally, we go to Sunday twilight football at Marvel Stadium. And it's the game of the round. Of course, it's always the game of the round when it's 4:40 football at Marvel Stadium. It is St. Kilda taking on the Gold Coast Suns. Now, the line for this one is Gold Coast being favoured by 19.5 points. Ins and outs. Well, Ross has done a special here. He's put about 15 players in, and he's already dropped 4 players. It's not even Friday 5 p.m. yet. In comes Isaac Keeler, in comes Zach Jones, in comes Hunter Clark, in comes Liam Henry, in comes Angus Hasty, in comes Hugh Boxall, in comes Mac Heath. Out goes Angus McLennan, out goes Jack McRae, who will be out for 3 to 4 weeks. We're unsure on the exact timeline with that punctured lung. Out goes Lance Collard, and out goes Hugo Garcia, dropped only 2 weeks after getting a Rising Star nomination. Good one, Ross. In comes Ethan Reid for the Gold Coast Suns, in comes Sean Lemons, and in comes Ben Jepson, who will be out. Well, we know for sure Garcia, Collard, McRae, and McLennan are out. I'm assuming that we will see Zach Jones come in after a good performance in the VFL, but the rest of them, I am unsure what they will do at St. Kilda. In terms of the Suns, probably not too many changes. I mean, they just had a good win against Hawthorn last Thursday. They get a nice 10-day break as well after going to the Territory for the last 2 weeks. I just think the Suns are a little bit better than the Saints right now. They're a bit more progressive. They've got some star quality players. And I think with it, Dougal Howard out and not a great defence in terms of lockdown ability outside the great Callum Wilkie, the likes of Ben Long, Jed Walter, and Ben King will really stretch St. Kilda's defence on Sunday. Now, we know how well the Saints play Marvel, though, which is why there's a little bit of trepidation in me picking the Gold Coast Suns. But at the line of 20, I'm not certain. Well, I think they get the points, the 4 points, which is all that really matters. I think they will. I think the Suns are looking pretty good this year. This is a game they need to win if they think they're going to be a top 4 team. If they really think they're a top 2 team, especially with a game in hand, then they definitely need to win these games against bottom 6 opposition. The Suns are coming. We better watch out, okay? It will be the Suns' time. It might not be this year they win the flag or next year, but with all these Northern Academy picks and all these potentially young gunsters, or is it gun youngsters? I think it's gun youngsters. With all these potential gun youngsters, like Bodie Ulan's brother, who will be coming in the draft next year as a top 5 pick, I just think it's the Suns' time. I think they're going to start winning games on the road. Now, the Saints are not great opposition. They just lost the West Coast, as I mentioned, but it's tough. It's tough to go to Marvel and beat Rossline, but it's finally time the Suns start banging together wins and prove themselves to be a top 4 caliber side. And if they want to be a top 2 side, they need to start winning games away from home. And that home includes the Northern Territory as well. They need to win games in Victoria. That's it. That is the preview for round 11. It is Sir Doug Nicholls round, formerly called Indigenous round. Whatever you want to call it, Indigenous round, Sir Doug Nicholls round. Just make sure you pay tribute of all the great Indigenous players who have plied their trade in the AFL, VFL, Waffle, Sandford, whatever local club you play for. They have been such a great ornament to the game. And every single week, we sit there with amazement at the brilliant feats they can accomplish. And I hope for Sir Doug Nicholls round, we can see some more masterclasses this weekend. That's it for this week's episode of Slam Talk Sports. I'll see you at the MCG tonight. I might even have a microphone and camera in tow. Make sure to check me out and ask me a few questions once I'm done asking you a couple. I love you all. We'll see you all next week.